My name is Bill Stevens. I just thought we'd start with some intros and then kind of take it from there. I teach American history and AP American history and Washington, D.C. history at the Seed Public Charter School.
Good morning. I'm Dee Hoffman, and I run a company called Children's Concierge. We're an education company that helps families, parents, and kids explore the world together.
Marco, a freshman at Northern Virginia Community College and an alumni of the program.
Good morning, judges. We are Unit 1. We're from Capitol Hill. My name is Yvette Sandoval.
My name is Joshua
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you.
We're excited to be here, and again, this is not an opportunity for us to try to catch you in some kind of historical, factual mishap. It's just an opportunity to talk a little bit about what you've been learning and about the Constitution. So you seem very at ease, but make sure you're at ease. We're here to talk about the philosophical and historical foundations of the American political system. And we were hoping to specifically talk about question number 2, which I'll read, I guess, and then we'll hear from you guys and do some question and answer. Recently, a historian wrote that the American colonists believed that just as men had a right to their property, so they held a property in their rights. Men did not merely claim their rights, but also owned them, and their title to their liberty was as sound as their title to the land or to the tools for which they earned their livelihood. How would you explain the difference between claiming and owning a right, and how is that difference important?
John Locke wrote, "Though the earth and all inferior creatures be common to all men, yet every man has a property in his own person. This nobody has any right to but himself. The labor of his body and the work of his hands, we say, are property his." Meaning that every person has a natural-born right in their body, that the labor of his body is the rights of his body that he has worked for. In other words, John Locke's theory was that anything that you put effort into then becomes your property.
As scholar Jacob Cook notes, the American colonists saw their rights as property that they owned, not merely something they claimed. They believed that their ancestors had purchased their rights through centuries of hard work. There's a great difference between claiming and owning rights. Owning a right is a right that belongs to you and is yours to do as you please with. John Locke believed that we as people were all born with natural, unalienable rights, rights that belong to us, even in the absence of a government. Although we are born with these rights, they must be cultivated and protected through our efforts and labor. Thus, owning our rights comes when we fight to defend them and work to ensure that they are recognized and respected by those around us.
The influence of John Locke's ideas on the colonists can be seen most clearly in their movement for independence from Great Britain. When the Declaration of Independence was written, it cited the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness as self-evident truths. Colonists also founded their rights to revolution in John Locke's theory as presented in his second treatise on government. In that work, Locke argued that the people's contract with government was broken if it didn't protect their rights, and in that case, they had an obligation to revolt and craft a new government.
Certain acts of the British government, such as the use of writs of assistance, the Stamp Act, the Township Revenue Act, and the Quartering Act, violated rights that the colonists established for themselves and had come to expect. Colonists believed that they owned a right to privacy in their own homes, the right to be represented in any government that taxed them, and that they had a right to gather together in protest if they wished. All of these rights were violated by the British Crown between 1763 and 1776.
When they declared independence from Britain, colonists wrote that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Therefore, John Locke's ideas influenced the colonists because the agreement of giving up some power to the government so they can protect their rights was necessary. Because a government who abuses their power toward their people is no government at all.
The idea of a social contract is related to the concept of rights in the sense that people made an agreement with the government in order to protect their rights. People in general have individual rights that are unalienable. The power that the government has depends on the people because the people choose how much power they give to the government. In a social contract, the people give up their executive, judicial, and some of the legislative power to a government. In return, the government is required to protect their rights. The social contract and rights are connected because the entire purpose of the social contract is to keep rights secure.
In conclusion, the colonists adopted John Locke's ideas because they were appropriate for what they wanted. They wrote in the Declaration of Independence the things they learned from Locke, such as owning rights and claiming rights. How owning right is something that belongs to you, and it is phrased as unalienable rights in the Declaration of Independence. Although some historians argue that Locke's influence on the colonists was minimal, we see a strong correlation between the colonists' beliefs and the actions and ideas of John Locke. We believe that Locke's ideas were essential to the American colonists' concept of rights and social contract, and without these fundamental ideas, the Declaration of Independence and American Revolution would have been drastically different.
Thank you very much. Wow, that was great. I guess I have a follow-up question. This is not for anyone. Anyone can obviously kind of answer this, but I wanted to hopefully tie on two things that were mentioned. Lisette, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mentioned that all the colonists' rights were violated, and then Josh said, therefore, colonists rebelled. And Walter, I thought you made an interesting point that, like, you kind of drew in the historiography and said that some historians have argued that perhaps Lockean rights weren't that big a deal in the Revolution, or I paraphrase you there, but, like, how did colonists then that were unaware maybe of the written idea of Lockean rights, who had not read the two treatises of government, or how do citizens today that have not read John Locke, why do they rebel, or why do they get involved in government? So if you don't know the written part of it, why did colonists then and why do Americans today either rebel against government or get involved in government?
I would like to say that maybe even if the colonists back then and people now don't know the second treatise of the government that John Locke wrote, or isn't as aware of to the government and politics, it comes to say that the owning rights come into play. So it's a natural sense of the people that they have the ability to revolt, and they know that it's a right to them because they have to protect themselves.
I would like to add that it's not only that, but it's also common sense, because if you have a government that isn't protecting you or isn't protecting your individual rights, you should know that you have the right to rebel and try to at least get a new government.
I would like to add on what my parents say, and if the people give the power to the government for the middle of the social contract, that means that the power from the government derives from the people, and so the people have the right to rebel. Even on today, on Tunisia, there is a people who is rebelling against the government because they feel that their rights are not protected.
Not only that, but even before the Constitution, when there were colonists felt that the British Parliament was abusing too much of their powers because we weren't being represented in Parliament. We were getting taxed without representation. And the Quartering Act, for instance, these army people were coming into their homes and basically just saying, we run the house. And they felt that their rights were violated because they owned their house, they owned their land.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you tell me your thoughts about it? How do you agree or disagree with the colonists' philosophy about rights, their rights?
I think I of course agree with their rights because we weren't born savages. We weren't born animals. We have rights. And for someone to tell you that you don't have rights, that's in no instance do you ever think you don't have rights because you were born a person. And for a person not to think they don't have rights, it's just, it won't ever in an instance not happen because we do have rights.
I agree with my colleague Renee, that maybe people as colonists, we do have rights, and no matter when, at the instant that we are born. But according to Thomas Hobbes, he believed that humans were born in the state of nature, that they can be violent, and in order to protect one's property and their rights, they would tend to use violence in order to protect those rights.
I would like to add to this that in that state of nature, it's necessary to have rights and someone to protect them. Because if you didn't have no one to protect them in the state of nature, other people would have that right to violate you.
And even
I would like to add also that I agree on what the colonists made, because in what case is the Marbury and Madison case, they say that they have the right to establish and ordain for the future generation. And so as we are today, we are the future generation. And so the colonists will cultivate and be involved in the government. So we now have to be involved in the government.
and after the separation of the British Parliament, we created the Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation was pretty weak because the national government didn't have any power. But what the colonists liked about the Articles of Confederation is that it protected their natural rights. It protected their individual rights.
Great.
I would also like to agree as far as the colonists believing in rights, because they also added the Second Amendment, which is a right to bear arms, and the Fifth Amendment, which is to remain silent so you won't incriminate yourself, and that's an influence from Thomas Hobbes. So in the end, it's all about the individual and his rights, and that's where the colonists got their influence from the Constitution.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Do you believe that there are any other rights that citizens now own as times have changed, that our society is different? For example, there's this debate over whether or not everyone is entitled to health care, and those rights aren't stated in the Constitution or any other documents. So do you feel that as citizens we now own newer rights, and what type of rights do you think those are?
I think over the development of time, the government has gained so much power and control of our lives that over time there is going to be a necessity of more rights that we need protected. I don't believe that healthcare is a necessity for everybody. Of course it is, because going to the doctor, being in the hospital is quite expensive. But I don't think that the government has the right to say we all need healthcare.
I would like to disagree, because as the healthcare bill was more of a thing for the common good, because there are some people out there who can't afford healthcare, who can't afford health insurance, and this was sort of a way to reach out to those people.
I would to add the children birthright situation, where if a children is born with a parent that is a legal alien, they might be denied the right of citizenship. But in the 14th Amendment it says all persons, it doesn't say all citizens. So they sort of own that right, but the Constitution is too vague and make it more simple.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. I don't mind hopefully you don't mind if we provide a little feedback or thoughts for the future, but I mean, I can start by just looking at my notes here, and I couldn't write quick enough, and I really appreciate the ability to draw on specific factual information to prove your points. I mean, I think that's one of the best examples of that I've seen so far. So both your study and your teacher's ability to kind of drill that in, I think should be commended. I think also the ability to kind of, despite having 5 people, despite everybody being able to add to the discussion, I thought was impressive as well, as I know that can be a difficult thing to do in a limited amount of time. I don't know. Anything else? That idea of Tunisia, I thought that was brilliant. I thought I might have to prompt that in there, but I didn't need to, so I was really impressed.
Well, I'm the non-historian on the panel, so it's very important for me to get the whole picture. And boy, did you give me a good whole picture. I loved it. I understood exactly where you were going, what you meant. You educated me. I was so pleased. I couldn't wait to hear the next person speak. You tied it all back. You kept honing in on that point, and I needed that to get it, and I did, and I really appreciated it very much. It was very nicely done.
I'd have to agree. All the points were covered well. I like how each of you had your own example. It didn't seem like
Yes.
you were prepared, but more you drew from your own personal knowledge of the topic. The Tunisia thing, the birthright citizenship, I felt those were strong points. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Nice job.